Good morning, guys. Eric McGray here with Avant Manufacturing. Just making this quick video to, hopefully it's quick, to give you guys a little update on what's going on and just say hi and all that fun stuff. So I figured first I'll give you a little tour of the shop. So basically, so this front door, right? Cheers, Avant Manufacturing. And so as you walk in, basically got office door to here, and then over here, screen real quick, over here I've just got my barrels for all the chips and stuff, a shelf for collecting junk and whatnot. Got a little Riley, there's my little pupper girl, that's right, she is a superstar. Yeah, and then so that material rack, saw, grinder, fun stuff, so that way material can flow this way and then eventually over there. And this truck is kind of in the way, just park that guy in here at night. Forklift and stuff, much bigger space, right? Much bigger space than the old shop, so really nice. I like that. It's much better, more better. That's right, it's more better. So obviously I still have this this guy I still need to fix. It's been a minute. I need to fix it. But yeah, so machines over here. Still got my carts, and there's the baking racks. Those are super convenient. I like being able to store stuff on there. And then over here, we've got the heat shrink machine, which kind of just, it's a mess, got some random tools thrown on it, but it works well and I like it, and I used it a bunch the first day to set up all my tools, and I don't know, it's probably gonna sit idle for a little while until I break something. So then I've got all the tool rack stuff here. This is just like kind of standing out here, my tool bins, because I put the heat shrink machine on that toolbox. You need to get access to the power outlet there. So I think what I'm going to do is build a workbench here, basically, and this is going to be like a tool assembly bench. So it'll have the heat shrink machine on it, and it'll have all the bins and stuff with various cutting tools, and so basically just be set up solely for assembling tools and eventually presetting tools, all that kind of fun stuff. And so I think on the back side of this, I may build a welding table, and obviously have a curtain up and stuff like that, and just have like a small little welding area. I like, fiddling around with that stuff from time to time. So over here, got the break area with a bunch of, got some bananas and coffee hanging out. There's a welder there, just kind of sitting out randomly, and some batteries on the ground because, man, I had some fun issues with the car and stuff recently, but it's all good. And yeah, Riley is inspecting the shipment of Uline boxes, make sure that we got everything we ordered. And so yeah, shipping station is over here and is currently just kind of a mess, but coffee is good. And got the bathroom over there, whatever, it's just toilet and a sink. And then this is the office. So definitely much less office space than previously had, which is a good thing. So let's get a view here, right? So yeah, this is it. I just kind of threw my desk there when I moved in and got to work. So it's been good for now, but eventually it's actually going to go in the back corner. Riley's bed is back there right now. That's pretty much her spot. But now that I've got all the network cables run, I put dual Ethernet jacks, RJ45, whatever, in a bunch of spots. So I've got one there, one there, over there, over here. So I've got a bunch of spots to hook up for networking stuff. So eventually my desk is going to be over here, I think I might want to build a new desk. I want to build my own because, man, sitting down all the time sucks. So, yeah, I'm gonna put my desk over there. I think over here, I'm going to have just like a little table and put the printer up there so it can get connected in the network. And then that way, so this will be like basically my area back here. And then that way, the rest of this stuff, I can have a desk there, desk there, maybe little, chairs or something up there. So that way, when I have other people come program and learn machining and a lot of fun stuff, they'll have a good place to work and be connected to the internet all good and whatnot, and into the network. So yeah, that is that right now. Grab my coffee real quick. So basically, yeah, moved here in, sorry for bouncing this around, grab my coffee, and I'm gonna set down this this camera so I don't have to hold it. Yeah, so let's just adjust this real quick. Yeah, adjust it a little. So if I could work this thing, I don't know what I'm doing. It's a tripod. So yeah, basically moved here in October, November-ish, something like that. And it was, I like it because it was perfect timing. My old lease at the other spot was a bit small, couldn't really grow there. Just didn't have room for machines, didn't have enough power. It's all good. It was a great place to start. And now I found this place, and the timing was perfect. It became available right as my old lease was expiring. And yeah, more space. Not a whole lot more overall space, about probably only like 200 square feet more overall. But at the old shop, I had about 1,000 square feet of office space, which was just completely unnecessary. Here, I don't remember exactly how much of shop and office space I have, but clearly you can tell it's, the office is appropriately sized, I think. And the shop is much more spacious, and the shape of it, the shape of the shop is much better also. So I'll be able to fit more machines when it comes time to buy them. And so yeah, location's great too. I'm now in Portland, just around the corner from the airport, which also happens to be right next to both I-205 and I-84 freeways, so which run north and south, and then east and west. So basically a great like hub for transportation, logistics, and all that. So location's good, space itself is good, timing was perfect, and the price is actually the same as what I'm paying before. So I couldn't say no. So that was the reason behind the move. So happy about that. What else is new? So after the move, yeah, went to PRI show. I posted a little bit about that. That was fun stuff. Bought a heat shrink. I showed you guys already that heat shrink machine and the holders and all that. So love those holders, definitely, and having the machine to assemble the tools. So I love the fact that like standardizing on those holders is really nice because there's a lot of benefits to them. I was kind of testing different types of holders for a while, trying to figure out what I wanted to standardize on and what I like, and the heat shrink ones were the ones I went with because a lot of reasons, but one is they're very simple. It's just a single solid hunk of metal aside from a pull stud, right? So very simple, which also means that it's inherently well balanced, so that's a good thing. When I was studying the Mari Tool prototype one, I went in and I modeled it up, and I started doing some analysis type stuff to it, and well, actually it wasn't really like crazy, analysis stuff. I kind of just looked up some some coefficients of thermal expansion, and did some number crunching in Excel and things like that. And I ended up learning about the clamping forces these things have, and which are awesome. And I ended up, I kind of calculated that my Haas that I use would not pull a 1/2-inch tool out of a heat shrink holder when cutting under the conditions that I normally cut at in aluminum when I'm roughing, right? So I normally rough aluminum at 15,000 RPM with a 1/2-inch tool, and I determined that my machine would not be able to pull a 1/2-inch tool out of a heat shrink holder at just, at 15,000 RPM. And so I actually got the chance to learn that my hypothesis was correct. Accidentally learned that. So what had happened was I was doing this job that it's just like a reoccurring job, right? And I assembled the GW Schultz Illumigator rougher, which has been amazing, by the way. And I put it in the Parlec heat shrink holder, and that's like my aluminum rougher, my aluminum 1/2-inch roughing tool, my standard one right now. And so again, doing this recurring job, I tweaked the program a little bit just to take advantage of what the tool and the holder assembly could do now. So basically, cutting parameters, material 6061 aluminum, and cutting parameters are okay, 1/2-inch tool. It was cutting 1.1 inches deep, 200,000 step over, so 40% step over. 15,000 RPM at 480 inches a minute, right? So those, yeah, I name everything. 480 inches a minute, 1.1 deep, 0.2 step over, 15,000 RPM, 1/2-inch tool, yeah. So in 6061, those are the cutting parameters. Now, under the prescribed parameters, I was getting 160-ish, 170% spindle load, so it was doing really well. And one of the pieces of stock that I had cut, I accidentally cut a little too long. It was the last piece of a bar, and I didn't cut just a little extra off that I should have cut. So it was just a tad long. So it was 1 1/4 inch thick bar, 6 inches wide, and I left a little too much on the end when I was cutting it on a saw. So basically what happened was the tool, right? So the tool's coming around and it's making the bend. So it transitioned from cutting 200 thousandths, radial depth of cut, and it came around this corner and it started cutting at 375 thousandths radial depth. So basically I was on the other side of the shop, and fortunately it only had to cut for, the 6-inch distance that was the width of the stock. So I was on the other side of the shop cutting more material, and I just heard this sound, which was like a weird combination. Well, it just sounded weird, but it was a combination of chatter, because the tool didn't want to cut that wide a step over, and the spindle RPM dropping. So it was cutting it. I programmed it for 15,000 RPM. As soon as it came around and cut that corner, basically the spindle load shot up to 200% and started drawing. It wanted to draw more power than the motor could give it, right? So it started just pulling down spindle speed. It was bogging down the spindle. And I could hear it, because during that 6 inches, it sounded like it dropped the spindle speed a few thousand RPM. So it was it was an experience for sure. But yeah, so anyway, I basically went back, and when the tool disengaged from a cut, I just stopped the machine, because after it wrapped around that corner, did that side, and it kept cutting like the normal amount of stock it was supposed to be cutting, it was back to just sounding good again. So I just let it run until it disengaged from the work, and I stopped it real quick just to look and make sure everything was cool. It was. And I looked at the, I never set a spindle load alarm on that. So I looked at the spindle load chart, and for that tool, it was at 200%. So basically, I can only assume what happened was as it wrapped around that corner, spindle load went from about 160 up to 200%. It tried to draw more power than the motor could give it. So load was still 200%, but because it was cutting more, it was pulling down spindle speed. So it was like soaking up more energy from whatever inertia was in the whole spindle motor assembly. And like I said, fortunately, it only had 6 inches like that to cut. Otherwise, if it had longer distance, probably would have pulled down spindle speed more and more and more to the point where the something bad would have happened. Probably like just broken tool or something, and destroyed my holder. Who knows? But anyway, when I stopped the machine and saw all that stuff and everything looked okay, I basically just let it finish the roughing cycle, put it on option stop, so that way when the tool got away from the work, I pulled the tool out, or actually I didn't even pull the tool out, I just inspected it while I was in the machine, looked good, and I went to go touch it off again just to see if offset changed at all, and it didn't, not even by 1,000th of an inch. So that was really cool, because I got to learn, like I said, it was an accident, but I learned that my original hypothesis about the Haas not being able to pull a 1/2 inch tool out of the heat shrink holder at a 15,000 RPM, whatever, it was right about that. So that was really cool, just to know that I can push the limits of the tool and the holder and that assembly, and basically make the machine now as my weakest link, right? So, and I kind of think of it like, guys who build and race cars or race anything really kind of know that it's kind of like you're always chasing that weakest link. You build your engine, and then your drive shaft breaks, and you beef up your drive shaft, and then your rear end breaks, right? And so it's always like chasing that weakest link. So for me, now that I've got the heat shrink holders, and good cutting tools to use in them, I am confident that I'm able to max out the machine's ability to rough with those tools, right? So without having to worry about tools getting pulled out and stuff like that. So that's really cool. So yeah, other reasons I like heat shrink holders are, like I said, balance, clamping force, run out is like almost non-existent. That's pretty cool. Again, because it's a single hunk of metal that's, it's well made and stuff like that. So yeah, what else do I like about it? Oh yeah, obviously because the profile of these heat shrink holders, because it doesn't have a bunch of parts, and each of those parts has to have like certain thickness and whatnot. They're very slim, so you can sneak up on things and get close to stuff. So yeah, it's really nice to have all kinds of crazy clearance and to be able to get into areas where you couldn't before with like an ER collet holder. So that way you can use like stubbier tools instead of like long reach tools. So that's another reason I like them. And yeah, so overall I think they're really good. There is definitely a downside to them, which is that they're so stiff, in fact, that they transmit like pretty much every vibration into the spindle. So you don't want to let tools chatter or anything like that. I mean, you don't want to do that anyway, of course, but what I'm trying to say is they don't do a good job damping vibration. So like a hydraulic holder, pretty sweet when it comes to damping vibration. That was one of the things when I was playing with those that I learned is awesome. They dampen vibration pretty well. But yeah, the heat shrink holders don't do a great job of that. So you want to have your like cutting parameters dialed in pretty well, so you're not like causing resonation and all that stuff. And then yeah, so other than that, I mean, that's really the only downside I see, aside from the fact that now this, the fact that assembling them and disassembling them is a little more effort than, something like an ER collet, just because you need to have that heat shrink machine, or you need to sit there with a torch, which is no fun. I mean, it's cool if you're only using like a couple tool holders, but yeah, there's no way I was gonna continue using a torch if I was gonna buy 30 tool holders for sure. So, and yeah, definitely recommend that Mari tool, the machine that they sell, just because it's probably the cheapest on the market that I found, and it does a good job. I mean, it does what I need to do. So I wasn't looking to spend 10 grand on a machine that I'm gonna assemble a bunch of tools with, and then it's probably gonna sit around for a month before I need to, assemble another tool with. So, so yeah, there's that. What else? So that covers tool holders. So that was in December. January, nothing new and exciting that I can share. Aside from, that was like, so the latest thing is, the whole NX, buying NX, right? Just got cam stuff for now. I'm very likely going to add CAD stuff soon. But I'm just fiddling around, playing with the cam stuff for now. I haven't had too much seat time with it yet, but I do like so far. So, why NX, right? I just picked up Autodesk stuff not too long ago. And why am I switching again, right? So I've kind of been on this journey for a while, trying to figure all kinds of stuff out. And I guess I'm a little crazy like that. I've had this idea in my head for so long, probably since I've first started working in a machine shop, right? I didn't really want this video to get too long, but I mean, while we're here, why not? I'll give a little bit of my backstory, right? Because I probably told a few people who I've met in person, like John Saunders, I got to see at Autodesk University, and so he got to know, and Al Whitmo when he was here just the other day. We had lunch. Other than that, I really haven't told many people like how I kind of got into machining, I guess. So, and I mean, never really, it's not on Instagram, and never really talked about it. So anyway, I'm just gonna, I know it's a segue, I was talking about NX and all that stuff, but this is, it's relevant. So just bear with me, right? And I know it's a long video, so I'll warn you guys ahead of time, you'll see it. If you want to watch this and check it out, then you will, obviously. But, and if you don't want to, then you won't. No big deal, whatever. I digress. So, how did I get into machining? Well, I went to a vocational or technical high school I grew up in Pennsylvania, right? So, Bucks County Technical High School, that's where I went, and it was pretty awesome. I had a good time there. Lots of cool friends and teachers and all kinds of fun things happening, and yeah, so basically while I was there, I majored in or studied or whatever you want to call it, welding and fabrication technology. That was what I did. So basically your first year at that school, freshman year, you go through all the different courses. Basically, you spend a couple days in each one to help you decide which of the wide selection they have that you want to pick to major in for the next 3 years. And that's in that school. Basically, half the time you spent doing academics, half the time you spent doing your shop major or whatever, right? So 6 days I would be doing, math, science, English, history, and then the following 6 days was like, a little bit of gym and your shop class, right? So for 3 years, 50% of the time I was in school, I was doing like welding and fabrication stuff. Really cool. And so while I was in high school and having fun doing all the welding and whatnot, I got my very first introduction to CNC was when the shop at the school got a CNC plasma cutter, right? So it was basically when it arrived. Now, my teacher was awesome dude, very knowledgeable, great teacher. He's a little bit older, not too familiar with computers and stuff like that. Me, definitely much more nerdy. So basically it was kind of my task to figure this thing out, right? So, some of the people, there were people there who physically set up the machine and the cutting table and whatnot. But when it came to the computer and figuring out how to use it, that was my task. So what I did, and I was able to be like far enough ahead in my actual schoolwork stuff that I could set aside time. I could do that, which was cool. So I really appreciate that, and so that's what happened. That was my introduction, right? So just use some like whatever program came with it and whatnot, and got the machine set up, plasma cutting, CNC. So that was fun. I loved that. That was really cool. And so while I was in high school, I know this is getting to be a long story. It's okay. I'm just sharing. While I was in high school, I also rode scooters a lot. I was basically back and forth between BMX and scooter riding. So like, those Razor kick scooters, freestyle stuff, right? So I'm sure there's probably skateboarder machinists out there that are hating on me right now, maybe. I don't know. And if so, then, that's your prerogative. People hate, I never understood the whole, all right, I'm digressing again. But anyway, I had plenty of skateboarder friends too. Like in my hometown, skateboarders, BMX riders, scooter riders, anyone who was in action sports kind of all hung together and had a good time, right? So that was another really cool thing that I liked. But anyway, so back on topic. In high school, at the time, I was riding scooters a lot, right? Also, at the time, it was very much a new thing. Very much a new thing. I mean, there was I remember at the time when I started riding scooters, there wasn't more than there was this online forum where most of the people who rode kind of came together and discussed and shared and did all kinds of stuff, right? Organized. And at the time that I started riding, went on there was a few hundred people on there, right? So very, very new. And so this was when I originally got on there, and by the time I was in high school, there's more people, but the market for scooter parts, there wasn't really much offered there, right? So basically, I'm in a weld shop. I'm learning how to make things out of metal, and there's no performance style, whatever. There's no high end or any kind of performance oriented scooter parts on the market, right? So at that time, we would pretty much just rig up our own stuff. It was all over forums. People had little instruction how-tos. You go to Home Depot, you pick up these little strips of aluminum, you screw holes and you bolt them in, to reinforce them. Because if you would just buy the Razor scooter from Walmart, right? You go out, you ride it. There was literally a time. I remember a very specific time when I bought a new one, and I even put some of my rigged up stuff on it to help out a little bit, and I broke it within 20 minutes. I mean, most of the time they'd last longer than that, but usually not more than a couple weeks, depending on how hard you rode it, doing what you had to be careful with them because they just snapped. So, anyway, yeah, that was. So there's a problem. There's an opportunity. There's a market, right? I'm learning how to make things. So I'm just oh, well, I could probably design some stuff. And so that's kind of what I did. Pennsylvania, wintertime. It's cold out, it's snowing. Don't go outside all that much. So I would design stuff on the computer at home, scooter parts and whatnot. And then I was hey, this would actually be kind of cool to have made, right? So figured out how to source stuff from China, and also in the US. US was pretty expensive for high school kids to try and start making, have machined things sourced or whatever. But I only had a couple products, not much. I had a guy in Tennessee or Kentucky, one of those two, I don't remember, but making some products, which was really cool. And then I had, China making some other stuff, which was, it's whatever. It was cool too, I guess. But so I started selling those. So that was my first business, actually, was McGray Scooter Company, and that was pretty cool. That was a fun time, and I didn't have that very long. I don't know. I was in high school, and it was it was a good time, and then I don't know. Graduated, summer came. Probably partied a little too much in the summertime. I mean, senior week and all that fun stuff, and then just hung out with friends all summer and whatnot. And then basically I started working at a machine. All right, I'm back right now. I just had to stop real quick. The camera stopped for some reason. So I started working at the first machine shop job that I had was just like, it was in Croydon, Pennsylvania. I remember that. I started out as basically just like, I had experience designing stuff on the computer, you know, doing CAD work because I designed the parts that I had outsourced. And yeah, I had some experience with, I had experience operating a big CNC plasma table at a previous job. Like while I was in high school, I had like some co-op program where I was working, I don't know, I was and in the summer or whatnot, I don't remember. I was working on a big plasma table, like literally the size of like a football field or something, and I used to overhead crane whatnot to put material on and all that stuff. So I had experience operating CNC plasma, so I had a little bit of I was familiar somewhat with CNC controls, and you know, the whole high school setting up the CNC plasma table and stuff, in addition to the CAD modeling work that I did. So that kind of helped me get into the first machine shop that I got into. So yeah, basically I learned how to operate a Haas CNC mill for the first 2 weeks, and then boss man put me on a laptop with Mastercam and said, figure it out. Because the shop that I was in was a great shop full of very knowledgeable guys who, like a lot of shops in the country right now, were getting older and ready to retire. They had tons of knowledge. A lot of them were manual machinists and whatnot who were just like full of knowledge, but there wasn't really anyone succeeding them. So yeah, I worked there and basically I was actually put to program lathes, right? So I had a TL2 lathe and a laptop with Mastercam, and that was my workstation, right? So, and we had other lathes and equipment there. There were engine lathes that the manual guys ran, and there were a bunch of Bridgeport mills. There were Haas mills, Herco mills. We had a Haas SL20 lathe. We had an old Mori lathe. You know, we had ProtoTrack. We had Yasnak control stuff. So in addition to programming a lathe with Mastercam and just, you know, posting out something that would feed the TL2, I'd also program the other CNCs, and I learned how to do post-processor stuff too, because, you know, obviously you got the Fanuc control, you got a 30-year-old Yasnak control, you got ProtoTrack, you got all this stuff, and I had to figure out how to get the post-processor to put out the code that would make that right. See, now there was a CNC lathe guy, this really cool Egyptian dude named Omar, and he taught me so much stuff, and he was an older guy. He programmed by literally writing his own G-code, which, you know, there was a time when that made total sense. We had a seat of Mastercam on a laptop in front of me, so we could totally get stuff done more efficiently just programming on Mastercam, right? So it was great because between the two of us, he knew, you know, I'm brand spanking new. I don't know anything, right? And he knows so much, and he knows what each machine likes to see in its program, right? So between me and my computer skills, and then him knowing what he knows, like, we basically teamed up, and he, you know, every time I would post something, he'd be like, no, this needs to change. I'd figure out how to make it work in the post-processor and all that fun stuff. So that way we built post-processors there to work with what we needed, and it was great. So yeah, that was my first job. It was basically, what we did there was we did a lot of semiconductor industry work. So I worked with, I mean, you know, I cut aluminum, I cut brass, I cut steel and stainless, and we cut a lot of tantalum, which I didn't even know what tantalum was before I started working there. I never even heard of it. Turns out there's like in the semiconductor industry, there's demand for those kind of parts. So we like turned and milled and bent and welded all kinds of tantalum. We didn't weld it ourselves, actually. We would send that out up to like New York for electron beam welding or something. And got to work with PTFE and other types of plastics. Basically I did like gun drill some PTFE rods, and we'd anneal them and shove sapphire bars through them and do all kinds of fun stuff like that. And then weld I learned how to weld plastic there. That was cool. So anyway, I know I kind of just talk about stuff, trying to come back around. But anyway, so when I worked there, that was the first time when I kind of realized that all the stuff, man, how do I articulate this, right? So all the kind of different things that we do it's all based on like math and physics and things that are pretty, I guess, black and white, you know? There's ways to calculate all that stuff. So me just being who I am, wanting to like, I love automating stuff. Like I want to be able to automate stuff, and just knowing that, okay, well, and you can create templates for things, and you can say, okay, well, stainless likes this type of cut with this insert and this, you can describe everything in a way that makes sense to a computer and have it just, yeah, I don't know how to explain all this, but, and the same thing with the orders that we get coming in, and all the CAD, CAM, PDM, PLM, ERP, all this like integration kind of stuff, and the integration, the automation, all that kind of stuff, these ideas like started forming when I first started working at that machine shop, right? So that, and I've worked at other machine shops since then. I worked at a place in New Jersey, and then I worked at I worked in California for a bit, and before I moved up to Oregon. So that is the place in California was really awesome. I got to design a lot of stuff and work with some great people, in addition to handling the manufacturing part of stuff too, and the programming. So that was a really good time. So basically, I guess I was trying to tell that story a little bit to like my experience there at that first machine shop, and also at the place in New Jersey would have benefited really, really well from because the place in New Jersey actually made their own products. They made like electrical connectors for utilities, basically. So the power lines and fiber optics and phone lines and stuff like that, like the different connectors that go on all that kind of stuff. That was what that company in New Jersey focused on, and so the parts were designed in-house, and a lot of the manufacturing was done in-house. So I kind of think of that whole stack that I'm thinking of, the CAD, CAM, PLM, ERP stuff, that whole stack, and being able to like automate the ordering process and the planning process and stuff like that. Production planning anyway. That just kind of reaffirmed my ideas that this is a good thing, and the ideas that started at that first machine shop. And then when I went to go work in California, it was very similar in the way that we designed all of our own products, and all of the machining was done in-house. There was other stuff like steel stamping, rubber molding, and stuff like that we obviously didn't do, but we had like 5 machines in the machine shop. So all of the machining we did in-house, which was really cool. And again, that idea persisted, that man, like if we just design things a certain way that fit in this box, and obviously like what I do now with the job shop stuff, I can't really control the design too much, but even still I can work around that a little bit. But if you what am I trying to get across? So for companies that do make their own products, and even what I'm trying to do now, it's just like having a solid like system that integrates CAD, CAM, PLM, ERP, some type of ordering system. Like it makes a lot of sense to me, and I kind of see it. I can see it that, the more time that I put in and the more work that I do, like it becomes more clear. But like I said, each one of these jobs that I've been to kind of like reaffirms this idea that this is what kind of like what needs to happen. And it's not an easy thing to do, for sure. I mean, it's been 7 years since I first worked at that machine shop in Pennsylvania, and it's still like feel like I'm barely scratching the surface of actually accomplishing what I want to do. But so that's kind of what brings me back around. I told that whole big long story to kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea of, I don't even know if I made it too clear, probably not, but of why I'm still looking, like why I was still in search of something, like as far as like why I picked up NX and the other types of software that I'm looking into and what I'm trying to accomplish with them. So yeah, for anyone who questions like maybe he just thought Autodesk stuff was terrible or something, like no, not at all. It's great, it's good, CAD, CAM, good stuff. They do have the vault. Value-wise, it's probably the best out there. I mean, for the money, it's fantastic. I haven't seen anything better. So, but to do what I'm looking to do as far as like all that, integrating all the different software together, that it looks a little tougher to do with Autodesk at the moment. I'm still going to be, talking with them and figuring out, if I can help, make suggestions and whatnot, then totally cool. And if not, it's all good. But that's kind of where I'm at, and that's why I picked up NX, because I feel like it's a little bit better suited for that kind of stuff. Like I said, as far as the actual work that comes in my door and what I do, CAD, CAM wise, pretty much any of the major packages in the market right now will be able to handle it. But all the integration and stuff like that, that's like way trickier to figure out what's going to work well and what's going to give me the least headache in doing, because I'm going to have a lot of headaches for sure, but I'm trying to figure out what's going to give me the least amount of headache to do all that stuff. Yeah, so that's pretty much the big long story about why I picked up NX. And so yeah, so that's what I'm working on, basically. So integrating that into ERP software, which I've also been playing with from time to time. Picked up a license to SAP Business One last year, which I didn't really use all that much, because learning that there are a lot of dependencies. I mean, there's a lot of dependencies when you're trying to integrate a bunch of stuff together like that. And like there's dependencies on top of dependencies on top of dependencies, and it's like just layers deep. And when I picked up the ERP software, I realized that I was basically trying to put a roof on a house that didn't have walls. So yeah, or a foundation really. So I had to like rethink and like kind of backtrack. So fortunately it was only a subscription to that software that I stopped after that first year, because I realized I didn't have that foundation that I needed. So yeah, and I'm still exploring the whole ERP software market, because yeah, I don't know. I'm probably not going to play with it until I got a good foundation though. So CAD and CAM and PDM, PLM stuff is what I need pretty well. What's the word for it? I don't know. It needs to be set up right. I need to configure it well in order to get the ERP system to be able to build on top of that. But I'm still exploring like the ERP stuff, because at the same time, I want to, obviously integrating them, I need to figure out, I need to know how to build that whole foundation in order for the ERP stuff to like play with it nicely. So yeah, it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like trying to juggle a bunch of different balls at once or something, or build them. I don't know how to describe it, but it's what I do. I don't know. Kind of crazy, beating my head over stuff like that when I'm just like a little small machine shop with a single machine trying to, you know, put parts out. And I don't know what to tell you. That's what I told you. So this video has probably gone on long enough, and yeah, it's time. I need to get to work. So yeah, hope this makes up for not having posted a video in a while. And like I said, not going to edit this because that's just going to consume even more time of mine. I just want to get out there and say hello, share some new insights and whatnot, and yeah, give you a little tour of the new shop. So like I said, video's taken way longer than I expected, but hopefully you've enjoyed it, or something. And yeah, just happy to have conversation. So if you got any questions, comments, complaints, concerns, well, don't complain to me, but feel free to start a conversation. So happy to talk about all kinds of fun shop stuff and all the other things I'm interested in. So all right, well, take care, peace out, and get to work.